In South Africa today, some white South Africans feel they are being left behind, facing discrimination in areas like employment, wealth distribution, and opportunities. Please, let's join the conversation and also remember to share your perspective and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's hear what they have to say concerning how they are feeling concerning this issue of discrimination between the whites and black Africans.
Do you think you're equal to the black South Africans?
No, I don't think so.
In what way?
Plenty of ways though. Today you can have a matric certificate, you can have qualifications, all of that stuff you can, but if you're white, you don't get the job. But a black person, they don't have shit, like jack shit, but they get the job.
So being poor and white in South Africa has affected you because of the system and the government's in place now.
Yeah.
So do you think it was better prior to apartheid, before apartheid?
I wouldn't say that.
For you as a white person? Because you was privileged before and now you become underprivileged.
Yeah, I'd like everybody just to be equal and treated fair, like.
But now you feel you're not treated fair by the government, that correct?
Yeah.
Is that right saying that?
Yes. I mean, black, white, pink, yellow, what color ever you are, doesn't matter. We are all made by God.
But you don't feel equal, is that
exactly, like, I don't know why they have this thing of blacks and whites, and it doesn't make sense to me. Like, we're all human beings. No matter what your color, we're all equal in God's eyes. Why not all be all equal in the government's eyes?
Equality will feel like discrimination when you are used to privilege. So on the question of quotas and some white people apparently feeling snubbed by the system, I remember a few years back, I was on a panel auditioning young people for a youth orchestra here in South Africa. And it's important to mention that these auditions were screened, they were blind, which means that there was a screen between us, the panel, and the students who auditioned for the orchestra. So we couldn't see them. We didn't know who they were. We didn't have any names. This one was number 1, that one was number 3, 4, and so on and so on. And this is obviously to ensure complete fairness and objectivity, right? And between the 3 of us, we had a marking system, and at the end of it, we rounded up the averages, and that is how it was decided who passed the auditions. But also crucially, where people were placed in the orchestra. Because in the orchestra, we have different sections, and every section has a principal or a leader. And within the section also, depending on how well you pass the audition, you either get placed number 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or so on and so on. And yes, it matters. And I think especially for young people at that stage, it's a sort of measure of their achievement, so to speak. But anyway, we go through the process and the results come out. And it so happens that in one of the sections, as principal, is placed a young black boy from the township. And so he is placed ahead of this young white girl, Afrikaans middle-class white girl, who in utter disbelief after the first rehearsal came up to me and she said, "Sir, there must have been something wrong with the process. There's no way that he was placed in front of me, and I truly, really believe that I should be sitting as the leader of the section. And is there any way that we can re-audition, or is there any, you can speak to this person and that person?" And of course, I reiterated to her that the exact reason why we do the process in the way which we do is to ensure complete fairness and objectivity. And so the results were to be kept as they are, because they were, in fact, completely fair and completely objective. But the reason I tell this story is because this was obviously the first time that this girl was faced with the idea that some black kid from the township could be placed ahead or could be better than her at anything in life. Because up until that point, she'd obviously been told that just because of the color of her skin, that she was somehow guaranteed a higher premium of life. And it all feeds back into this idea that white people are somehow superior to people of color. that when Black people or people of color achieve anything in life or are appointed in positions, especially high-ranking positions, that it must be because of some sort of quota, that it must be somehow politically motivated, and worse yet, that it must be some sort of corruption. Because how, God forbid, how is any Black or person of color competent in anything, let alone excellent?
My name is Megan. I am a South African. I am a Jew. I'm an anti-Zionist. I'm an anti-racist. Today is supposed to be the day of reconciliation. And the reality is that there's been very little reconciliation. And part of the reason is because there is such huge denial of white privilege. There's such huge denial of white wealth, of white spaces, of white centering, of the fact that we are still following very white rules in South Africa, and that white people are still incredibly advantaged, even to the point where they're able to say ridiculous things like, there is no more racism, or get over it, or the kiffness is not racist. And until white people move and shift, that particular voice still remains completely acceptable in white circles. It's like being racist at a dinner table. It's like being able to get away with saying things like that. And unfortunately, with the DA mentality and the Freedom Front mentality and the fake white genocide mentality of AfriForum, white people are able to get away with saying and doing this stuff. So it is absolutely important, and I know that there aren't enough of us, but we need to start building white acknowledgement, white people, white communities that are prepared to stand up and say what's really going on. And white people really need to start speaking out against the racism of the Kiffness and the vile racism of the DA, who are now going to be building a Gaza wall so that people don't see poverty. These are the kinds of things that we have to speak out against as white people who can see what's going on.
Discrimination has to end. Whether you are black or white or orange, we are all the same. South African people need to really stop treating people differently because of the color of their skin. It annoys me because I know how it feels like. I've had my husband treated differently because of the color of his skin, and I've been treated differently because I'm black, and I hate that. So, discrimination.
Do you think Afrikaner farmers are the most persecuted group in the world?
I think those 49 people that came certainly felt they were persecuted, and they've passed every sort of check mark that had to be checked off in terms of meeting the requirements for that. They live in a country where farms are taken and land is taken on a racial basis.
Okay. Do you think they're more persecuted than Uyghurs or Rohingyas, or more persecuted than political dissidents in Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua, or more persecuted than those who would be threatened should they be returned to Afghanistan by violence by the Taliban?
Well, the problem we face there is the volume problem, okay? If you look at all the persecuted people of the world, it's millions of people. They can't all come here. And we had refugee programs.
So why prioritize Afrikaner farmers?
Well, because it's a small subset, it's a new issue, and the president identified it as a problem and wanted to use it as an example. But that's different from having these refugee programs that were basically spending money to put people up in communities and accommodate them, and it was acting as a magnet. Millions of people in this country illegally, and today the border is sealed.
Let me challenge you, and I'm just going to say for the public, if you want to understand about the, quote, persecution of Afrikaner farmers, go look at the composition of the South African government. Since July of 2024, there's a government of national unity, and the opposition party to the ANC, the Afrikaner Party, the Democracy Alliance, is part of the governing coalition. They joined the governing coalition a year ago, and the leader of that party was given the remit of Agriculture Minister, John Steenhuisen. He is the leader of the former Afrikaner Party, still widely representing Afrikaners. He is the Minister of Agriculture in South Africa right now. I assert that this claim that there's persecution of Afrikaner farmers is completely specious. Are you aware ever during the apartheid era in South Africa did the United States establish a special program to allow South African blacks who were treated as second-class citizens in the apartheid program, a special program so they could claim refugee status in the United States?
No, because I was probably in 9th grade or 8th grade at the time.
Well, then I don't expect you to know. I'll just tell you, never has there been a program, a special program for Africans to come in as refugees to the United States. We've allowed special programs for people being persecuted for their religion, Soviet-era Jews. We've allowed special programs for people fleeing from communism, Cuba, Vietnam, the Soviet Union. We've never allowed a special program to allow Africans into the United States in an expedited refugee status until now. Afrikaner farmers living in a nation governed by a government of national unity that includes the main Afrikaner Party. And actually, an even more right-wing Afrikaner Party is also included in the coalition government. Now, would you agree with me, Mr. Secretary, that if we're interpreting the statutory phrase, a well-justified fear of persecution, we should try to do that in an even-handed way?
I think we should try to do that in the interest of the national security of the United States.
So okay, I agree with you too. We should. Should we try to do it in an even-handed way? So for example, should we say, if you're persecuted on the grounds of your religion, we'll let you in if you're a Christian, but not if you're a Muslim?
I think that the United States has a right to allow into this country and prioritize allowance of who they want to allow to come in.
But I'm going to ask you, what? Yeah. So a well-justified fear of persecution?
Yeah, they thought that their farms were being burned down and they would be killed. I think that's a pretty good justification for wanting to come. They're afraid for their lives.
And should it be applied in an even-handed way? That's an easy.
No, our foreign policy doesn't require even-handedness. It requires prioritizing the interests of the United States.
The phrase says you are entitled to entrance as a refugee if you demonstrate a well-justified fear of persecution.
No, you're not entitled.
So can you have a different standard based upon the color of somebody's skin? Would that be acceptable?
Well, I'm not the one arguing that. Apparently you are, because you don't like the fact that they're white, and that's why they're coming.
I'm just asking you to say that would be unacceptable.
Well, no, I would say that the United States,
a very easy thing
the United States has a right to pick and choose who they allow into the United States.
Even based on the color of somebody's skin.
You're the one that's talking about the color of their skin, not me. These are people whose farms were being burned down and they were killed because of the color of their skin. Well, you've demonstrated enough because you think anyone should be allowed into this country for any reason because they met a certain criteria.
Who has said that?
We are going to prioritize people that come into our country on the basis of what's in the interest of this country. That's a small number of people that are coming.
But you said this weekend that
but
there
in other
would be more.
cases, it's harder to vet. In other cases, it's more difficult. And by the way, the United States admits people every year. 1 million people come to this country every year legally. 1 million.
And
people
now
a year come to this
there
country
is
legally.
one group of people that have an easy pass into this country. For the first time, this administration has said Afrikaners get an easy pass and refugee programs for the remainder of the world are shut off. And you can't say to the American public that we should apply this statute in an even-handed way.
No, I think it should be applied in a way.
No,
you shouldn't be shocked. It should be applied in the national interest of the United States. Our immigration policy should be based on the national interest of the United States, period. End of story. If there is a subset of people that are easier to vet, who we have a better understanding of who they are and what they're going to do when they come here, they're going to receive preference, no doubt about it. There are a lot of sad stories around the world, millions and millions of people around the world. It's heartbreaking. We cannot assume millions and millions of people around the world. No country can. So you have to have a process of deciding who do you prioritize, who do you allow in. We do it all the time. We do it in our immigration system now under our current laws. Unfortunately, it's primarily based on family connection and not on what they're going to contribute to the society from a merit standpoint. That should be changed, but that'll require statutory changes. But the bottom line is this notion that somehow we have to accept anyone who wants to come to the United States is absurd. No country in the world has an immigration policy like that.
And no one is arguing that we should. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.